Restoring a root canal tooth, it can feel like you're trying to navigate a clinical minefield, right? What works, what doesn't? Well, we're about to cut right through all that noise. We've taken 4 key studies and boiled them down into one evidence-based cheat sheet to give you clear, actionable answers for your very next case. So here's our roadmap for today. First, we're going to bust a really common myth. Then we'll walk through a simple 3-step decision framework. After that, we'll get into modern materials, talk about what to do with cracked teeth, and then wrap it all up with a super simple guide to make sure your restorations actually survive long-term. All right, first up, let's get right into it and tackle a belief that, honestly, a lot of us were probably taught in school. Why are these endodontically treated teeth so darn fragile anyway? It really is the fundamental question, isn't it? For years, the answer we all heard was dehydration. But as it turns out, that's not the real story at all. So here's the real deal. The old myth, the thing we all used to think, was that the tooth just gets dry and brittle after a root canal. But the reality, the actual problem, it's all about the massive volumetric loss of tooth structure. From the decay, sure, but also, and this is a big one, from our own access preparations. And if you want proof, look no further. 63%. That's a staggering 63% reduction in tooth stiffness when you combine a standard access cavity with an MOD prep. So you see, it's not that the tooth is brittle. It's just been hollowed out. It's structurally compromised.
Okay, so if we know that structural loss is the real enemy here, how does that change how we plan our restorations? Well, it actually simplifies things. It all comes down to a simple 3-part framework.
Seriously, just think of this as your go-to clinical checklist. Step 1, ferrule. Step 2, post. Step 3, the final restoration. You just answer these 3 questions in this exact order, and you're setting yourself up for success every single time. And I mean, everything starts with the ferrule. This isn't just some dental school vocabulary word. This is the absolute foundation of your restoration. That 1.5 to 2 millimeters of solid, healthy tooth all the way around. That is the single most critical factor for whether that tooth is going to last. It is, and I can't stress this enough, completely non-negotiable. Okay, which brings us to the post. And let's just get this out of the way right now, crystal clear, a post does not strengthen the tooth. At all. Its one and only job is to hold on to the core material. That's it. Full stop. And you know what? This simple little table makes that whole decision a piece of cake. Look, if you have a ferrule, you don't need a post. Period. Simple as that. Now, if you don't have a ferrule on an anterior or premolar, okay, then yes, you're going to need that post for retention. But check out the molars. They're the exception, right? Their pulp chambers are so big that they usually offer plenty of retention all by themselves. All right, last piece of the puzzle, the restoration itself. For back teeth, listen, cuspal coverage is absolutely mandatory. A direct composite is just asking for trouble. It's 10 times more likely to fracture in these teeth. And when you're thinking about coverage, you gotta think about endocrowns. They are a fantastic, super conservative option for molars. But, and this is a big but, the data is pretty clear. They are not recommended for premolars. Okay, so we've got the structure all planned out. Now, let's talk about the cool part, the modern materials that actually work with the tooth, not against it. This is what we call the biomimetic strategy. And this quote right here, it really sums up the whole philosophy. Instead of using these super rigid, overpowering materials of the past, the goal now is to use stuff that behaves like natural dentin, things that can flex and distribute forces in a much more natural way. And this is the perfect example. The old way, rigid metal posts. These things were like little wedges that just concentrated stress, and they could lead to those catastrophic, unfixable root fractures. The new way, flexible fiber posts. They're a total game changer because their elasticity is so similar to dentin, and that helps protect that incredibly fragile root structure. And for the core itself, the buildup material, the go-to is Short-Fiber-Reinforced Composite, or SFRC. Seriously, think of it like rebar in concrete. Those little fibers inside act as a built-in failsafe. They literally stop cracks in their tracks or deviate them before they can cause any real damage. All right, let's pivot for a second and talk about a really common and kind of stressful clinical situation. What do you do when you find a crack before you've even started the root canal? Well, the protocol is actually pretty straightforward. If that tooth is still vital, you can often manage it conservatively, with a composite and just keep an eye on it. The pulp has a really high chance of making it.
But if it's already non-vital, you just proceed with a root canal and plan for full coverage. And here's the really surprising part, the good news. The prognosis for a properly restored, non-vital cracked tooth, it's actually really good. Pretty much the same as a tooth that wasn't cracked to begin with. Okay, that was a lot of information, right? So how do we tie this all together? How do you remember all this when you're chairside with a patient? Well, we've got a simple mnemonic for that. Think of this as your ultimate survival guide, your checklist to make sure these restorations last. All right, let's run through it. The survival guide. S is for seal. Your corneal seal is just as critical as the root canal itself. U is for under 4 months. You gotta get that final crown on there quickly. R is for residual structure. The ferrule, it's king. It's number 1. V is for volume loss. Remember, that's the real reason these teeth are weak, not dehydration. I is for indirect coverage. All your posterior teeth need a crown or onlay. V is for vertical forces, which molars handle beautifully with endocrowns. A is for advanced materials. We're talking fiber posts and SFRC. And finally, L is for location. Be extra careful with a lone terminal tooth. That's a high-risk situation. And that's it. That's the cheat sheet. So that brings us to the final thought I want to leave you with. Looking at this survival checklist, which one of these principles is going to change how you approach your very next root canal restoration?